Audio test, movement test. Alright, looks like we're all good on audio. Hello everyone, this is Gundam Ace, aka John Hooper, and I'm here with my streaming of Rebellion's Secret Game Second Stage. Rebellion's Secret Game Second Stage is a follow-up to Secret Game Killer Queen. It's actually a remake of the original follow-up to Secret Game Killer Queen called Secret Game Code Revise. That was released in 2011. It was remade in 2013 for the PSP and the PC, and then it was released 5 years later again on the Switch, which is what we're using here. For those of you who don't know, Rebellions actually shares a lot of staff with Root Double, like its director and its writing team, so there are some familiar faces there. And when it comes to its differences with the original, which although you haven't seen, there's like 80% different, and it's about twice as much content, so it's mostly its own thing. It's not too based on the original, so to speak. There's no bet system on like Secret Game Killer Queen, so we're not going to be having any bets this time around. And what was I going to say? The PC version has its own exclusive route that's released. That's available after you finish the main game. I'm going to be showing that as well, but that won't be for a while, so you don't have to worry about that. And as per usual, I will not show any 18 plus content there. But yeah, let's get right into this. Okay, here we go. Alright, so as you can see, we have an episode select system, just like Secret Game Killer Queen. And all we have available to us now is the first one, Episode A, Absolute Revenge. Here we go. Oh yeah, quick heads up too, since the follow-up game has a totally different cast and setting from the original Killer Queen or Secret Game Killer Queen. Oh, sorry, hold on a second. Sorry, holding on 1 second for someone. So, also one other thing is that unlike Secret Game Killer Queen, the resolution for Rebellions the original resolution for Rebellions was higher, so there won't be any like zoomed in or zoomed out stuff like there was in Secret Game Killer Queen, so it'll be on full resolution the whole time. Alright, so just gonna make sure. 1 second. Alright, let's begin then. And here we go. He had a dream. A faint dream of a long forgotten day. Wake up. Come on, wake up. Come on, wake up. Okay. I'll get up in a minute, so don't rush me. Hey, you gotta get up now, you'll be late for school. Jeez, I get it already. Don't be so impatient, Kotomi. I'll be fine. So just give me 10 more minutes. Fine, it's not my fault if you're late. Resounding with that shout was the shrill cry of birds. Those dying screams sent Shuhei Fujita groggily out of his slumber. But the only thing that greeted his reborn eyesight was a world of darkness.
で、なんだ
Huh? What the... Shuhei cranes his neck to get away from the hard and cold sensation against the back of his head, only for grains of dirt to roll down his cheeks. He sat up as he wiped away the remaining specks of filth with the back of his hand, only to realize he'd been lying on earth and fallen leaves.
どこだここ今は夜か
Where the heck am I? It's nighttime, isn't it? Shuhei tried to take a look around, but was good as blind in the obsidian sea of darkness. However, he could at least tell from the chirping of wildlife and the rustling of grass that he was outside. And if the tree roots he felt were any indicator, he was probably in some forest. But how did I end up in a place like... It was that thought that resurrected Shuhei's last memories before he'd woken up in this place. The throbbing pain in his right flank and the lingering shock from the stun gun pressed against him slowly came back to him. It had been a day just like any other. After fulfilling his duty of cramming his head at school of knowledge he might never use again, Shuhei had headed for his part-time job at 4 p.m. Six hours later, he bade farewell to his co-workers while eating the dinner he'd bought beforehand at a convenience store. With the nightlights his only guide through the darkness, Shuhei had passed by drunk salaryman as he quickly made his way to the bike parking lot behind the train station. As usual, the dark parking lot, illuminated only by small moth-infested street lamps, had been totally deserted at that time of night. Naturally, Shuhei, having no intention of sticking around any longer than he had to, tossed his bag into his bike's basket and began unlocking the two locks that protected his means of transport. It was halfway through that task that someone suddenly bound his arms behind his back. The first lock fell to the ground with a clatter. The bike fell over, scattering the contents of its basket all over the place. Three large hoodlums in business suits had snuck up on Shuhei without him noticing. All of them were unnervingly calm. Shuhei's face froze when he realized that this was clearly not the first time they'd done this. Shivers rattled down his spine as he surmised they were not here for something as petty as taking his wallet or giving him a little beating. He put up a struggle in an attempt to flee, but the man behind him remained as still as a boulder. Shuhei shouted as loud as he could and kicked anything within reach, but the men didn't seem worried in the slightest. They just approached him, they just slowly walked up to him and pressed something against his flank. And with that, Shuhei shouted as a drilling pain shot through him. His body sprung up against his will as though he were convulsing. But the pain didn't end there. Sparks flew before him. All the air in his lungs squeezed out and exited his body in the form of a scream. The last thing Shuhei remembered was someone pushing something against his mouth to muffle his screams. When he came to, he was here.
拉致されたんだよな、普通に考えて。
Logically, one would call this a kidnapping. Shuhei had no memories of being taken away, but he couldn't think of any other way to explain his current plight. But who did it? And why?
俺をさらうメリットなんて何もないはずだ。
I can't think of any benefit to kidnapping me. He had no parents and lived in an orphanage, so ransom seemed very unlikely. He considered the possibility they wanted his organs to sell on the black market, but him being alive and well squashed that notion flat. He had several other theories, but they were all based on rather flimsy justifications, as anyone who knew him would find out about the crime fairly easily. It was at that moment Shuhei felt something staring at him. But when he turned around to check it out, all he saw was more darkness.
誰かいるのか?
Is anyone there? No reply.
気のせいか。
It's just my imagination then? Shuhei sighed. Suddenly, he remembered something important.
あ、そうだ。俺の携帯。
Oh, right. My cell phone. Shuhei, Okay, Shuhei stuck his hand into the pocket his cell phone knew as home. He felt something hard in there. Culprits didn't take it?
なんだこれ。
What's this? But contrary to his expectations, what Shuhei pulled out was not his cell phone, but some electronic device about the size of his palm. It had an LCD screen and a single button. At first glance, it looked like some kind of portable game console, but Shuhei recognized the device.
ひょっとしてこれ PDA ってやつか。
Is this one of those so-called PDAs? Shuhei couldn't tell very well in this lighting. One of his classmates had a device just like it. Shuhei examined the device's edges and tried pressing the switch next to the small light. Well, well. Light cut through the pitch-black air. Faint light, but light nonetheless. Thanks to the light, Shuhei could make out his familiar cuffs, confirming that he was indeed still wearing his school uniform. Next, he checked the LCD.
時間か。これ。
Is this supposed to be the time? Displayed on the screen were numbers that appeared to represent the time. 3:52. Thanks to that, Shuhei realized that it had almost been 6 hours since he'd been grabbed. If that were true, then he couldn't have been moved very far. However, if it had been 30 hours and not 6, then he had absolutely no idea where he could be. He didn't even know if he was in Japan, but...
考えても無駄か。
Okay, back. Is the audio still working? Okay, we're back. Let's continue. Thinking about it's not going to get anything solved, huh? He had no clue what means they'd use to transport him, after all. But gathering information was more important at the moment anyway. With that thought, he pressed a button on the bottom of the PDA. Just as he expected, the menu popped up at that moment. There were 3 icons on the screen: people, flag, and map.
とりあえず地図から選択してみるか。
Let's try the map one for starters. He tapped the map icon, hoping it might help him figure out his current position. Just like he'd predicted, a map displayed on screen. There was a red blip on it.
この赤い点が俺の現在地か。それとも何かの目印とか。
Does that red dot represent my current position? Or is it some kind of mark? He knew he'd get his answer if he started walking, but right now, he didn't feel like literally going blind into this pitch-black forest. So Shuhei decides to assume it represents his current position for now. He seemed to be in rather low territory instead of by the mountains. Though he wasn't positive since he didn't know the scale of the map, the slopes didn't look all that steep, so it seemed he wouldn't have much trouble climbing down if he had to.
これってどこなんだ。
But just where the hell am I? The mountains around him looked just like any other, giving him no clue to his location, to say least of what country this was. It seemed it really would be best for him not to waste his time trying to figure out where he was. Shuhei returned to the menu and tapped the flag icon this time.
なんだこれ。特殊機能。
What's this? Special function? The screen displayed the words. Special function? Sorry. The screen displayed the words special function. Nullify the special functions of all PDAs within 10 meters of this PDA. The sudden appearance of game-like text brought a frown to Shuhei's face. Perhaps this really was just some game console he'd never heard of before. The fear that knowing his current situation wasn't helping him one bit reared its ugly head.
とりあえず人のアイコンも見てみるか。
Guess I should check that people icon first. Deciding it was too early to make any judgments, Shuhei went back to the menu and tapped the people icon. And what he saw there knocked away whatever remnants of sleep there had been gnawing at him.
藤田周平プレイヤーナンバー
Shuhei Fujita, player number 4? At the very least, seeing his own name there convinced him that the device wasn't just some run-of-the-mill game console. Quite the contrary. Now Shuhei was beginning to suspect that it was him who'd been thrown into some game. If the special function and player number designations were any indicator, that is. But it was the clear condition part more than anything that turned those suspicions into convictions. Shuhei's condition was, all prime-numbered players' clear conditions are fulfilled. His player number was 4. Which meant there had to be at least 3 other players in the same boat as him. Like him, they probably had their own clear conditions, player numbers, and special functions. Each one of them would be gunning to clear this game. The map, special functions, and this whole stage were all set up to facilitate that. When he thought of it that way, all the dots in Shuhei's head started connecting. So I was grabbed so they could force me to play this game. Is that it? But he hadn't the slightest idea who they were, or what they gained from this setup. And again, that was all the more reason he needed to stop thinking about until he could investigate the surrounding territory. At any rate, I figured out what's going on. So next, I have to... wait for dawn to come, descend the mountain, and look for other players. It seemed finding others and exchanging information with them was his top priority. Though still bewildered by his unrealistic situation, Shuhei pocketed the PDA and decided to stay where he was until dawn came. Meanwhile, in another location, so my clear condition is survive until the last day. Oh, it's goddamn ridiculous. So remarked Yuna Todo, player number Jack, as she stared at her dimly lit PDA without the slightest hint of amusement. She didn't seem particularly suspicious about what was written there. She just operated the PDA while being careful not to miss a single word it said. Just then, her PDA suddenly beeped. At that moment, a new mark shaped like a letter envelope appeared diagonally lower right next to the flag icon. All that's left is to check this thing. Yuna reached out for her throat. Her fingers came into contact with a strange metallic sensation. She could tell the object was wrapped around her neck. Yuna stuck her fingers in the gap between the collar and her neck and tugged it forward. The collar began biting into the skin on the back of her neck, but she just kept putting in more and more strength. Just then, her PDA began sounding an off and ear-splitting alarm. Vibrations have been detected in your collar. Please let go of your collar right away. Should you fail to comply, your collar will detonate. Yeah, I getcha. Yuna let go of her collar, not fazed by the warning in the slightest. she wasn't going anywhere with the thing on, and there was nowhere way to remove it but to clear the game. The collar was an invisible chain that bound her to the game.
ほんと悪趣味なんだから。
Sick bastards. It was then that Yuna felt someone watching her from behind. She followed her instincts and gazed into the darkness behind her. Hidden amongst the trees was a camera, camouflaged so that most people wouldn't notice it at a single glance. Yuna looked into those lenses that gleamed in the moonlight and spoke.
ねえ、そこのあんた。
Hey, you.
今に始まったことじゃないけど、こういうのってやっぱりいい気分はしないわよ。
This didn't start just now or anything, but this kind of shit really does make me sick. But naturally, there was no response. Yuna sighed, pocketed her PDA into her uniform, and walked through the shades of the trees. She was headed for the mountain road to the northwest that she found on the map just moments earlier. Dawn's rays still had yet to come, so everything but the sky was pitch black, yet Yuna fearlessly pressed on, nevertheless. After walking for a while, the deep blue veil of night gradually gave way to the bright blue canopy of morning. Dawn still hadn't broken, but Yuna's surroundings were now bright enough to see. All of a sudden, she stopped dead in her tracks.
誰？
Who's there? Whoever Yuna called out to wasn't visible in her immediate vicinity, but they were most certainly there. Ever since Yuna stopped walking, the unnatural sound of something scraping against leaves that she'd been hearing this whole time had also stopped.
そこにいるんでしょ？出てきなさいよ。
You're there, aren't you? Come on out. Yuna called out once again. No sounds answered her. Right now, she couldn't even hear the irritatingly loud chirping of insects. Yuna crouched down as she let out a slow sigh. The fact she'd gotten no response made clear that whoever was out there held no peaceful intentions. Best case scenario, they were keeping their guard up. Worst case scenario, they were a hostile. Were they someone who'd figured out the game early on, or were they just a coward?
Come on.
For God's sake. Yuna mined her surroundings and slowly inched backwards while moving towards the mountain path she'd been aiming for. She didn't think her stalker would start a meaningless fight. Since they didn't have any weapons that would give them an advantage, it still wasn't at that stage. They would do whatever they could to avoid setting off the sparks of battle, leave slowly, and pretend they didn't see each other. That painless outcome would be the most ideal turn of events for the both of them. Until that moment, at least. The PDA in Yuna's pocket suddenly started beeping. She thought she turned it off, so she hadn't seen that coming in the slightest.
なんで？
Why? Caught completely off guard, Yuna frantically reached her hand into her pocket. Just then, someone darted out of the bushes as if they'd been waiting for that moment. Yuna swiftly brought her hands up. But her assailant paid no heed to her hastily prepared defense. They stepped out of their crouch into a fighting stance, close the distance in the blink of an eye, and kicked Yuna on the side with a motion of a whip. Yuna cried out in pain. She stumbled as she held her side. However, her well-trained body didn't yield to a simple kick like that. Why, you? Yuna charged under her opponent while her fiery red hair swayed. Her opponent's face warped in surprise. Clearly, they had not expected Yuna to shake off their attack so simply. Yet in spite of that, their response was swift. The assailant calmly dodged Yuna's punch, evaded her attempted right kick to their feet, and even managed... Oh, sorry, one second. And he managed to parry her follow-up roundhouse kick with a counter kick of their own. Surprised by her assailant's level of skill, Yuna put some distance between them to readjust her stance. Her opponent seized that chance to leap into the grove in one bound, then used that momentum to turn around. Hey, wait! But her assailant ran off as fast as they could and vanished back into the forest as quickly as they'd appeared. Damn it! You've got to be kidding me. What the hell's your deal? Yuna loudly gritted her teeth at the pain in her side. But as it was too risky to go after them and not worth it to get some payback, Yuna had no choice but to let her assailant go. Just grin and bear it, huh? Damn it, now I'm pissed. Yuna cursed and grimaced as she checked her wound. Fortunately, it seemed the pain would fade sooner or later, and she wasn't bleeding internally. It wouldn't even leave a bruise. Still, it didn't make her feel any better. I'll remember that mug. Next time we meet, your ass is mine. The email that arrived at 4:30 a.m. contained all the rules of the game for the players. Shuhei Fujita reviewed the emails. He then ascended the mountain. So there's 6 rules, huh? Okay, so here are the rules. Rule 1. Each player has been assigned their own individual PDA. Players must fulfill their clear condition on their own PDA by the end of the game. The game's end time will be announced 24 hours in advance. Rule 2. Players are not permitted to be separated from their PDAs for more than 3 hours. In this context, separate from their PDA means being over 1 meter away from your PDA. Rule number 3. Players are not permitted to remove the collars attached to their necks. Rule 4. The game's playing field has been divided into multiple areas. Players are not permitted to leave the designated playing field. Here are the other 2 rules. Rule 5. The game has multiple players. Players are free to take or use other players' PDAs, but they can only clear the game by fulfilling the clear condition of the PDA that was assigned to them at the start. Furthermore, if a PDA's original owner is eliminated from the game, their PDA will become unusable. Oops. Sorry. Rule 6. Players are permitted to do whatever they please, as long as it does not conflict with the rules. Furthermore, should a player break the rules or fail to fulfill their release condition, they'll be disqualified and their collar will detonate. Shuhei's ears were filled with the sound of crackling leaves and twigs at his feet. This new information in the form of the game's rules had spurred his speculation even further.
やはり俺たちはゲームをやるために集められたらしいな。
Looks like we really were brought here to play a game. Shuhei had surmised as much from the information originally written on his PDA, but the addition of the rules made him sure of it. There was one other piece of evidence to support his theory. Shuhei looked toward the woods ahead of him and spotted it.
ここにもまたカメラか。
So there's a camera here too, huh? Shuhei had spotted several surveillance cameras with the same model on the path he'd taken here. That was probably also the source of the gaze he felt right after he'd woken up. It seemed there were cameras planted all over the place, set up in the way so they wouldn't stand out.
おい、そこにいるのは誰だ?
Hey, who's there? Naturally, Shuhei received no answer to his question. But regardless of who was watching him through those lenses, he knew one thing for sure. He and several others had been kidnapped in order to force them to be players in this bizarre game. Surmising that had led to several deductions on Shuhei's part. They were... Shuhei frankly turned around when he heard that scream behind him. He immediately spotted the girl dangling off a mountain slope. Not only were there at least 3 meters between her and the ground, but also rocks lying right below her. It was very likely she'd get severely injured if she fell in her current pose.
おい、大丈夫か?
Hey, are you okay? Huh?
少し待ってろ。すぐに助ける。
Just hold on, man. I'm coming over to help. Okay. That said, however, it would take Shuhei several minutes to get to the top of the slope from where he was. The girl was just barely hanging on as it was. The tree root her slender hand had grasped was breaking apart. She probably wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Which meant there was only one thing to do.
俺が下で受け止めるから、崖を蹴って俺の方に飛んでくれ。
I'll catch you from down here, so kick off that cliff and jump my way.
でもそんなことしたらあなたが
Huh? But if I do that, then you'll...
いいから、早く。
It's fine, just hurry. If the root broke apart, not only would the girl not have time to kick off the cliff, but rocks would fall down with her. If that happened, then Shuhei wouldn't be able to catch her.
飛べ!
Jump!
はい
Okay. The girl made up her mind, kicked off the slope, and glided through the air. Shuhei rushed without a moment's delay for the spot she'd land, and then caught her.
危ないところだったな。
Phew. That sure was a close call, huh?
そのありがとう
Thank you.
いや、無事でよかった。
No thanks needed. All that matters is you're safe. Shuhei shrugged as if we're all in a day's work and brushed some dust off his uniform. He turned to the girl and tapped the collar around his own throat.
そっちも首輪があるってことは、ゲームの参加者なんだよな。
I take it from that collar you're also a participant in this game?
まあ
Huh? Oh, yes.
そうか。初めて俺以外の参加者を見たよ。もしかしたら俺だけ起きるのが遅かったんじゃないかって心配してた。
I see. You're the first other player I've come across. I was getting worried that I'd woken up later than everyone else.
それで名前は？俺は藤田修平。
So what's your name? I'm Shuhei Fujita.
春菜。
Haruna. The girl only gave her first name.
春菜？
Wait, Haruna?
何？
What is it?
いや、知り合いに同じ名前のやつがいたから気にしないでくれ。
Oh, nothing. You just have the same name as someone I know, that's all. Don't mind me.
そう。
I see.
それでよければ情報交換しないか？誰か他の参加者を見たとかでもいいし、気になるものを見つけたでもいい。
Anyway, would you mind a little information exchange? Like, have you seen any of our participants or found anything of interest?
まあ、俺の方は交換できる情報なんてほとんどないんだけどさ。
Well, that said, I don't really have all that much information in exchange myself. Indeed, the only information Shuhei could offer was the stuff the organizers sent him. If he had been the only one to receive that email, they instantly upped the value of that information. But given that they were the rules, he highly doubted that would be the case. Since this was a game, he found it hard to believe that they just give him and him alone such a huge advantage at the start.
それでもよければ情報を交換しないか？
Well, what do you think of that?
どうした？
Something wrong?
ああ、ごめんなさい。私も何も知らないから。
Oh, no, sorry. I don't know anything either.
目が覚めたら森の中にいて、昨日のこともよく覚えてないの。
When I woke up, I was in the woods, and I can't remember much about what happened yesterday.
そう。